we got to move on to the next one, because sticking with the Vikings thing, I tweeted out, I'm paying off the tease. I tweeted out a topic, and I just said, if you were Kirk Cousins, or Kirk Cousins is himself, and you want to give him the best chance to win games, and in their prime. Now, we know that Diggs, Thielen, and Rudolph all kind of intertwine, not exactly in their primes, but we got a good enough sample size to understand what they could be. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hockenson. We haven't seen Jordan Addison and what he's going to be in his prime. So we're kind of speculating. But when I tweeted this out, I did not think it would go the way it was going. So far, and it's jumped in the last, it's been like 200 votes in the last, since we started the show. 90% of the fans right now, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hockenson. 90%. That is a huge number. Now, the comments are what's getting me. A lot of people are commenting, talking about Stefon Diggs' attitude and it matters and blah, blah. Just skill alone. So I'm going to start with you, Sam. Who would you take?
Yeah, so I cast a vote. I was one of the 1,000 people to vote, and I did cast my vote for Jefferson, Addison, and Hockenson. But I think that it's closer than 90-10, like the percentages currently indicate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Jefferson is preferable over Diggs, but it's not like a crazy margin. I mean, Jefferson's preferable to pretty much everybody, but Diggs was and is really, really good. Now, one question would be, are we looking at prime Diggs in Buffalo or prime Diggs in Minnesota? Because Diggs is even better in Buffalo than he was in Minnesota. I think
was he better in Buffalo, or does he just get the ball a lot? That's the other question.
He gets the ball a lot, but he struggled to get 1,000 yards in Minnesota. I mean, he had injury issues.
True.
He was shut down sometimes when he got double teamed. But for anyone thinking that Addison now is better than Thielen in his prime, not even close. I mean, Adam Thielen in 2017-18 was one of the best in the NFL, and I think there were definitely periods of time where he was in that converson. He's
on the racial all-star team, like black versus white. Thielen is one of the receivers everybody wants to put on their team.
Not touching that one. But you know what the kicker is? TJ Hockenson. I think TJ Hockenson, he tips the scales in favor of this current trio. He's got 900 plus yards this year. He's going over 1,000, and he almost had 1,000 last year. Kyle Rudolph maxed out at 840. Kyle Rudolph just wasn't as explosive, wasn't as versatile in what he could do. I think Hawkinson's a better blocker, better route runner. So I think that the tight end tips it. But if you're just looking at the wide receivers, I think it's fairly close.
Reggie.
Yeah, I go Jefferson, Addison, and TJ. And here's the reason why. After watching Justin Jefferson in that game against Buffalo last year, watching him in that game against Detroit last year, and watching him for the 2021 season, my first year on the Vikings beat, I am convinced he is one of the best wide receivers that I've ever seen.
True.
At this point already, was it fourth season for him? Still, I think he's one of the best that I've ever seen. And I've seen some dudes when I was in Cincinnati, I was there with AJ Green, and when AJ Green was still good before the injury happened. He was a dude.
Very underrated.
Yeah, he was a dude. And so, I've seen some guys, but man, as good as Diggs is, he's twitchy and his route running is great, but Justin Jefferson is so smooth, man. He's like a Rolls Royce out there, and he's always open. No matter if he's covered, he's always open. We found that out in Buffalo. And so I think just by Justin Jefferson being in that category alone, but I will say, to your point, Sam, at his peak, Adam Thielen was a dog. I was watching some of his old highlights, from before I got to Minnesota,
Mhm.
And the dude can ball, man. Like the route running, the speed. Like I think he's got Addison beat in that regard. Now I think Addison is going to grow to be a really, really good receiver, but I think Thielen washes him on that one. But yeah, to your point, like the tight end definitely does tip the scales, but it's so interesting because I feel like TJ could be even better if he had a little bit more stickiness on his hands.
Yep.
Because you talk about he's almost at 1,000, like he'd be over 1,000 right now if he catches some of the balls that he's dropped. And that was the thing when we did Superior Sports Talk, RIP, and Luke and I talked about TJ Hockenson before he even got traded here. They were, the talk was like, oh man, he's really good, but like, sometimes he doesn't catch well. And I think that was the reason why the Lions were like, oh, we can, he's good, but we'll let him go. Now they got over Rudolph, and Rudolph was very good.
Bear with me. I have a theory that I've had running for a few years now that is yet to be proven wrong. I'm going to go with Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson for a different reason than everyone else. So obviously we've all been covering sports for a while, but having come from a market where I was watching a lot of kids that were like 14 all the way till they were 18, to me, and just watching them grow up in the world that we have now of athletics, the athlete is so evolutionary that they're constantly getting better, right?
Mhm.
So when we compare, in every sense, when we compare who's the best now to who was the best then, I'm always going to go with who's the best right now, because the game is different. It's faster. It's more intense. These athletes, it's so incredibly hard for athletes in high school nowadays to be multi-sport athletes because of how good you have to be at one sport in order to go play at the next level. So to me, I'm always going to go with who's playing right now that's the best, right? So you have to go with Justin Jefferson. The focus is better. You have to be fat, even though it's not even that far off, right? It's just a few years in between when those guys played together and when these guys are playing together. But what I've seen just in the years, because I haven't been sports reporting as a full-time job, but for 3.5 years now. But what I've seen even since then, I'd watch 14-year-olds that were better than some of the college guys that I went to college with. It was just wild what you saw from them. But that's always been my theory, is when we try to compare, it's the same thing when people talk about LeBron and Jay and these kind of things. And I'm always going to go with who's playing right now. I think also, if we're talking about, Ron, you said talking about these guys in their peak, and you talked about we have to speculate a little bit with Jordan Addison. I think just the little shine that he's shown us in JJ's absence, which has been a topic of conversation in the locker room this week, he has the potential to be better than Adam Thielen was in his prime. You get a little weight on that guy. I mean, he dragged, 3 dudes 10 yards this past week with his size that he's at right now. I think I would have to go with Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson. I will agree with you, Reggie, though, that Hawk has got to be more consistent in catch, especially with his paycheck, right? He's got to catch a lot of the balls that he's dropped this year. So I think that's where you're kind of like, well, yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to go with who's playing their best ball right now, because it's different. The game is constantly getting better, constantly getting more competitive. And along with that, the athletes are getting better and more competitive. So
one thing I will say, it also depends on what rules we're playing by. Because the rules now and some of these schemes now are tight end driven. A lot of these schemes now are you can't knock my receiver out coming across the middle driven. I will say Diggs and Thielen, or Diggs and Jefferson, in my opinion, are a wash. Like they both are one-hand catch guys, 1,400-yard guys. Jefferson, I think, sets the bar a little higher. Because of what we've seen him do and what we think he can potentially get to. again, like Chris Carter keeps saying, we can't give him the crown just yet because we haven't seen it over a 10-year span. We haven't seen it over a 12-year span. And so we're seeing glimpses of greatness. But like Reggie said, we saw that from AJ Green. We've seen that from Chad Ochocinco. We've seen a lot of guys have some flashy couple years, and then we're like, man, what happened to that dude? Not saying that's going to be Justin Jefferson. We don't know what Stefon Diggs is going to look like, but he's already at year 9. And so when you look at Stefon Diggs and Jefferson, I'm going to wash that one out. I think Thielen is better than Addison. I don't think Addison's going to gain any weight, Julia. He's already told everybody, this is my weight. This is me. I've been this way since I was whatever. He keeps bringing that up because people keep asking him, are you gonna gain some weight?
21, 22?
Are you gonna eat some smoothies? Are you gonna some dudes
growing till they're 25?
Snoop Dogg is 50 and he ain't gained a pound since. Like
okay,
Jordan Addison is Snoop Dogg. He ain't gaining no weight. He gonna be that size, just like Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Smith. I think those two are 2 peas in a pod. They're both going to be absolute beasts, Heisman or Biletnikoff winners. They're going to be that weight. That's going to be who they play, how they play. But I think they're still strong. They're good, like taking nothing away from guys like that. But I think Thielen was a better possession receiver and fit like the mold of underneath guy to Diggs' deep threat ability. When you look at Addison, I think Addison actually becomes the deep threat where Justin Jefferson, as he gets older, becomes more of the Chris Carter possession guy that's going to just make ridiculous one-hand catches, toe tap type stuff. It's going to take him right to the Hall of Fame. I think it's Rudy and TJ Hockenson for me that changes the narrative. TJ Hockenson with his, like I think Sam said it, headed towards 1,000 yards. Rudy capped off at 800. I think that's what a lot of people are leaning towards. I think, yes, he has to be consistent, but TJ Hockenson, if he didn't have Justin Jefferson or like if he had more like a Deebo Samuels type like offense where he was George Kittle, he would easily be at 1,000 yards by now. Like he just doesn't have that offense where it's nonstop, quick game, fast, West Coast offense. Kevin O'Connell sometimes seems like he's always like trying to get a big play in there. I lean towards this new class of kids. But I think it's closer than people saying. But yeah, the 90-10 right now on Twitter, amazed at that, people.